Publisher Nacon and developer Rogue Factor just locked in a release date for their dark atmospheric action RPG, Hell Is Us, coming to the Switch 2 on September 24. Now, what makes Hell Is Us stand out in a sea of modern action games? It's a game that actively respects your intelligence. The creative team, led by industry veteran Jonathan Jacques Belletet, intentionally stripped out the modern gaming training wheels. There are no quest markers, no glowing minimaps, no floating compasses telling you exactly where to run. Instead, progression relies entirely on true old-school environmental storytelling and player intuition. You actually have to read clues, listen to the world, and navigate by landmarks. It's an approach to exploration that turns every single discovery into a deeply personal victory, rather than a checklist item, but don't let the focus on exploration fool you. The world of Teradea is brutal. You're playing as Remy, a peacekeeper caught between a violent civil war and a terrifying supernatural calamity that has given rise to monstrous creatures called chimeras. Because modern weapons are completely useless against them, you're forced to master heavy methodical melee combat using ancient swords, axes, and spears while managing a tactical combat drone to survive. It's tight, grounded, and unforgiving, prioritizing precise timing and resource management over flashy, brainless button mashing. Built on Unreal Engine 5, this game was a visual heavy hitter when it launched on PC and next-gen consoles, which makes its arrival on the Switch 2 incredibly exciting. Getting this complete, uncompromised, atmosphere-driven experience on a portable next-gen system is exactly the kind of technical showcase the hardware needs. Mark your calendars for September 24. Now, if there is one universal human experience that absolutely everyone dreads, it is moving out. The endless tape, the existential dread of realizing how much random junk you actually own, and the literal spatial nightmare of trying to fit your entire life into the back of a small vehicle. But leave it to indie developers to look at that real-world stress and say, hey, what if we made that incredibly satisfying? Publisher PlayStack and developer Ramage Games are doing exactly that, and they just confirmed a massive surprise. Their cozy narrative puzzle game one, Move Away, is landing on both the Nintendo Switches on May 28. Now, we've seen games tackle the cozy organization genre before, but One Move Away is doing things a little differently by trapping you in a first-person perspective and injecting a surprisingly realistic physics engine into the mix. This isn't just a clinical grid where items perfectly snap into place, you're physically hoisting, rotating, and wedging objects into cars, trucks, and moving vans. The game gives you total freedom. You can be a hyper-precise perfectionist, or you can embrace absolute chaos and just cram everything in. But be warned, if your balancing act is too careless, a brutal physics chain reaction can cause your entire beautifully stacked truck to come toppling down like a tragic game of Jenga. Beneath all the spatial puzzle solving, there's a deeply grounded narrative anchoring the whole experience. You're playing through the major life transitions of three completely unique characters. Instead of giving you massive text dumps or heavy exposition, the game tells its stories entirely through the objects you're handling. You're literally sorting through their memories, deciding what pieces of their past are important enough to pack away for the next chapter, and what gets left behind on the bedroom floor.
We remember you, dear reader.
If you've spent any time looking through lists of the absolute best virtual reality games ever made, you already know that the Moss series sits safely near the top of almost every single one. But let's be entirely honest, as incredible as VR can be, requiring a bulky, expensive headset means a massive chunk of the gaming community never got to experience Quill's journey. Well, developer Polyarch is finally fixing that. They just announced Moss the Forgotten Relic, a complete, unified collection of both Moss and Moss Book 2 that is completely ditching the VR requirement and heading straight to standard flat-screen displays on the Nintendo Switches. Now, translating a game built from the ground up for virtual reality over to a standard TV screen is a massive design challenge. In the original versions, you weren't only controlling Quill the mouse, you were physically existing in the space as the reader, leaning over the environment like a giant to move stone blocks and heal her. To make this work on a traditional controller, Polyarch has completely reimagined the game's camera and cinematic system. They've introduced a brand new handcrafted smart follow camera system that dynamically shifts to keep the gorgeous diorama-like scale intact. While translating those tactile hand motions into intuitive, traditional control inputs, it seamlessly stitches the narratives of the first two games into one massive, unbroken fable. On top of that, the visuals are getting a major modernization pass with enhanced performance, updated lighting, and entirely new, fully animated cutscenes to flesh out the lore. Plus, you're getting all the extra content out of the gate, including the acclaimed Twilight Garden DLC expansion.
Your hubris will be your downfall.
Set in an alternate history version of an 1733 kingdom near Venice, the Necromancer's tale drops you into a time period caught right on the edge of science and superstition. You play as a scholar who stumbles upon a genuine book of death rituals, and the game quickly becomes an intense social balancing act. There's a staggering 400,000 words of handwritten narrative and over 180 unique characters to interact with, and the game features a brutal trust system. You see, you can't just build an undead army overnight. You have to spend your days investigating, blackmailing, and manipulating the local nobility to keep up appearances. If the townsfolk's trust drops too low, you won't just fail a quest. They will literally put you on trial and string you up from the nearest tree. But when the masquerade finally slips and the pitchforks come out, the gameplay shifts into highly strategic, turn-based tactical combat. You aren't playing a traditional tank who can absorb hundreds of hits. You're a fragile academic using ancient spells, alchemy, and your reanimated minions to do the heavy lifting for you. What makes the combat so satisfying is how directly your narrative choices feed into it. The skills you pick during your fully voiced backstory, whether you choose a military, diplomatic, or academic path, completely alter your battle capabilities. Plus, for the players who are strictly here for the sprawling, multi-ending dark fantasy narrative, the console versions are shipping with a smart automatic combat resolution toggle so you can focus entirely on the roleplay. After capturing a massive wave of positive reviews and awards over on PC, bringing this heavy, narrative-driven experience to modern consoles is an absolute win. The tactical pacing and chapter-based exploration make it a flawless fit for the portable nature of the Switch 2.
5th edition. The game is very inspired by classic action-adventure.
Usually in a traditional action exploration game, your progression is tied to collecting external keys, grappling hooks, or high-tech bombs to open up new paths. But Rageborn changes the formula by turning your own shape-shifting body into the ultimate traversal toolkit. The map is a vast, heavily interconnected and layered slice of the Alaskan wilderness, and you're forced to constantly dynamically shift between three completely distinct forms to survive and explore. Each form serves a specific vital function for solving the environment. You've got the Homid form, your human shape, which handles the narrative interactions, high-tech firearms, and precision-ranged combat. Then there's the Lupus form, a fast, agile wolf that is absolutely perfect for stealth, silent takedowns, and navigating difficult platform-heavy gaps. And finally, you have the Krynos, the ultimate massive warform built entirely for visceral, blood-soaked, close-quarters destruction. Combat is a tight, reactive dance where enemies adapt directly to your playstyle, meaning you have to constantly swap forms mid-combo to break defenses and access hidden areas. Underneath the intense combat, there's a heavy emphasis on customized RPG progression. The story revolves around Taylor, a young scholar thrust into an environmental war against a corrupt mega-corporation who must actively build up a werewolf den. By rescuing allies out in the wild, you expand your camp, which unlocks deep equipment crafting and lets you mix and match hundreds of different mystical gifts to forge your own specific build. It is a wildly ambitious take on the license that could give the World of Darkness the stellar action title it's been waiting for. Werewolf, the Apocalypse Rageborn, is dropping in 2027. CRYMELIGHT is acting as a spiritual successor to Crystar and CRYMELIGHT, but it's completely structurally shaking things up by pivoting the series into a Hades-style roguelike. This time around, the narrative is taking a deeply warped inspiration from Alice in Wonderland. You play as a young girl named Alice who wakes up dead in purgatory with zero memories. Her only way out? Participate in a brutal death game hosted by the Queen where she has to repeatedly descend through shifting, twisted layers of Wonderland to earn her rebirth. The structure splits your time between the Tea Party, a safe sanctuary where you chat with companions and learn about their tragic pasts, and the hyper-stylized battlefield where you are fighting to the death against the Queen's royal army. Where the gameplay gets genuinely wild is how it blends fast-paced hacking and slashing with spatial management and card games. Every single time you strike down an enemy, their dying scream manifests visually as a shimmering blue-violet puddle called the Wonder Dimension. The more you expand this puddle across the arena, the faster Alice moves and the harder her tactical maneuvers hit, letting you actively manipulate the physics of the battlefield. On top of that, as you clear stage chambers, you collect specific skill cards. You use these to build a traditional 5-card poker hand on the fly. The higher the value of the poker combination you assemble, like holding a full house, versus a simple pair, the more absurdly potent your passive buffs and active skills become. Of course, it wouldn't be a proper 4U game without some heavy-handed psychological themes, which is where the repentance system comes in. As you slaughter wayward souls, Alice physically shoulders their collective sins. Back at the Tea Party confessional, you force her to literally cry them out, transforming those tears of penitence into permanent crafting materials to upgrade your weapons and accessories so you can go deeper on your next run. Now, let's talk about the elephant in the room. Pushing a game back by nearly 8 full months when it was literally scheduled to drop on May 28 is an incredibly wild move that usually signals a technical disaster behind the scenes. But according to the developers, this isn't a game stability issue at all. It turns out the delay is entirely due to production and logistical adjustments for the game's physical edition. See, despite being confirmed for a physical disc release way back in late 2025, the game never actually went up for brick-and-mortar pre-orders. Rather than splitting the community and launching a digital-only version first, the team made the tough call to push the entire project back so everyone gets the game at the exact same time. And honestly, if you haven't played it on PC yet, this is an absolute gem that is well worth the wait. Wandering Sword drops you into a deeply traditional wuxia martial arts tale where you play as Yuwen Yi, a young man who barely survives a deadly poison attack and vows to become a legendary martial arts master. What makes the gameplay stand out, aside from the breathtaking 3D pixel environments, is its unique dual combat system. You can switch on the fly between classic methodical turn-based grid strategy and a fast-paced, action-oriented real-time mode. Combine that with a massive cultivation system boasting hundreds of unique meridian pathways and martial arts scrolls, and you have an RPG that easily commands over 100 hours of your life. While PlayStation fans are understandably hurting right now, the massive upside here is for the rest of the console landscape. Originally, the Switch and Switch 2 versions were vague sometime later ports, and an Xbox version wasn't even on the table. Now, the extra development time means a fully unified global launch across every major ecosystem. Plus, these upcoming console versions are launching as the absolute definitive editions, packing in all previously released PC DLCs, entirely new Japanese and Chinese voice acting, and smooth performance optimizations tailored perfectly for the portable Switch 2 hardware. The Trails series is basically the gaming equivalent of a massive multi-season prestige television show, boasting one of the single most massive interconnected continuous narratives in the history of the medium. But because the series spanned decades across multiple generations of handhelds and consoles, actually keeping up with the definitive versions can feel like a full-time job. Thankfully, NIS America and Nihon Falcom are stepping in to consolidate the library. They just confirmed that the absolute peak of the series, the legendary Crossbell duology, is coming straight to current-gen hardware. They're hitting the Switch 2 this fall. Now, if you're completely new to this corner of the universe, you might be wondering why this specific duology gets treated with absolute reverence by the fanbase. It all comes down to setting and scale. Instead of a massive continent-spanning road trip, Zero and Azure trap you entirely within the hyper-dense, highly advanced city-state of Crossbell. You're playing as Lloyd Bannings, a greenhorn detective assigned to the Special Support Section, which is basically a glorified PR stunt division meant to handle odd jobs and win back public trust. But because Crossbell is physically squeezed right between two massive warring superpowers, what starts as a grounded story about handling local street gangs and solving municipal crimes slowly unravels into a massive high-stakes geopolitical conspiracy that changes the fate of the entire continent. Look, whether you choose to grab them separately on digital storefronts or pick up the unified physical collection to feed your JRPG shelf space addiction, Having the complete crossbell arc natively playable on the newest hardware is a massive win for game preservation and a perfect entry point for curious onlookers. Between Stardew Valley updates, Story of Seasons, and an endless sea of indie contenders, the genre is more crowded than ever, but Natsume isn't backing down. They're throwing their next big contender into the ring. Publisher Natsume just locked in a release date for Harvest Moon Echoes of Teradea, and it's hitting the Nintendo Switches on September 24th. Now, let's be real for a second. For a long time, the modern Harvest Moon title carried a bit of a stigma after the big split from the original developers. But recent entries like Winds of Anthos showed Natsume finally starting to find their footing by leaning heavily into a wider open-world style of exploration. Echoes of Teradea is taking that specific momentum and running with it. Instead of isolated, disconnected villages, the focus here is on a grander scale, expanding the open-world mechanics to make the world feel more interconnected, alive, and genuinely rewarding to just venture out into. But it's not just about standard crop management this time around. Echoes of Teradea is introducing a surprisingly active exploration that feels like it took a page right out of modern adventure games. Scattered across the land are these mysterious glowing power statues. By tracking them down and tackling quick mini challenges or environmental puzzles, you free dormant power wisps, trade those in at the forest goddess statue, and you permanently upgrade your stamina and unlock entirely new traversal abilities. It's a clever gameplay that gives you a genuine reason to put down the watering can and actually explore the wilderness. If you enjoyed the video, do me a huge favor, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and check out one of the videos on screen right now. As always, I'm Cyril, big thanks to the community, and I'll see you on the next video.